Have you ever wondered why LaGuardia Airport in New York has the code LGA when there's no G in LaGuardia? Or why Chicago O'Hare is ORD when it clearly starts with an O and an H? Well, before we begin, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell because we post new awesome video every single week. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments what city you're watching from and what time it is there. Thank you. And trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Buckle up, because we're about to dive into the absolutely ridiculous world of airport codes that will have you questioning everything you thought you knew about aviation logistics. From airports named after bodily functions to codes that sound like they belong in a comedy sketch, these 11 bizarre airport codes are so outrageous, you'll be laughing out loud before we even reach cruising altitude. Picture this, you're booking a flight and you see an airport code that makes you do a double take. You're thinking, did someone just randomly mash keys on a keyboard? Well, as it turns out, the International Air Transport Association has been creating these three-letter combinations for decades, and some of them are so wonderfully weird that they've become legendary among travelers and aviation enthusiasts alike. Today, we're going to explore the most hilariously bizarre airport codes that exist, and trust me, by the end of this video, you'll never look at airport boarding passes the same way again. Let's start our journey with what might be the most unfortunate airport code in aviation history. Sioux City Gateway Airport in Iowa, which proudly bears the code SUX. Yes, you read that correctly, SUX. Can you imagine being the marketing team for this airport? Every single piece of promotional material, every luggage tag, every boarding announcement has to include the letters SUX. The irony is almost too perfect, considering how many travelers already feel about air travel in general. But here's the thing that makes it even more amusing. The airport has actually embraced this unfortunate designation. They've created merchandise, social media campaigns, and even marketing slogans that play into the joke. It's like they're saying, hey, we know our code is terrible, but at least we're having fun with it. The story gets even better when you learn that airport officials have actually tried to change the code multiple times over the years. They've petitioned the Federal Aviation Administration. They've argued their case to the International Air Transport Association, and they've even proposed alternative codes. But bureaucracy being what it is, they're stuck with SEX for the foreseeable future. The airport has turned this potential embarrassment into a badge of honor. And honestly, you have to respect that level of commitment to finding humor in an awkward situation. Moving on to our next delightfully ridiculous code. We have French Lick Municipal Airport in Indiana, which operates under the code FRH. Now you might be thinking, wait, that doesn't seem too weird. But let me tell you about the town name that this airport serves. French Lick sounds like something you'd order at a questionable restaurant. And when you combine it with the airport code, it creates this perfect storm of unintentional comedy. The town was actually named after French traders who used to frequent a salt lick in the area. But modern travelers don't need to know that historical context to appreciate the humor. What makes this even more entertaining is imagining the conversations that happen when people book flights. Picture calling your grandmother and saying, hey, I'm flying into French Lick this weekend. The confusion, the clarification, the inevitable giggling, it's all part of the French Lick experience. The airport itself is tiny, serving mostly private aircraft and flight training, but it has achieved a level of fame that most major airports would envy, simply because of its wonderfully unfortunate name and code combination. Our third stop takes us to Hell, Michigan, which doesn't actually have a commercial airport, but the nearest airport code that serves the area is absolutely perfect for our purposes. The closest major airport would be Detroit Metropolitan Wayne County Airport with code DTW. But there's a small private airfield near Hell that uses the identifier 619. While not technically serving hell directly, the idea of flying into or out of anywhere near a place called hell is comedy gold. Imagine the boarding announcements. Now boarding all passengers for Hell, Michigan. Flight attendants could have a field day with the safety announcements. The town of Hell, Michigan, has fully embraced its diabolical name, complete with a mayor who calls himself the Mayor of Hell, and businesses with names like Hell's Kitchen and Screams Ice Cream. They even sell souvenirs that say things like, "I've been to hell and back." It's this kind of self-aware humor that makes small-town America so charming. And while they may not have a major airport code to match their name, they've certainly made the most of their geographic designation. Now let's talk about Normal, Illinois, which is served by Central Illinois Regional Airport with the code BMI. The irony here is delicious. You have a town called Normal, which sounds like the most boring place on earth, served by an airport with a code that stands for Body Mass Index in medical terminology. So you're flying into Normal with a BMI code, and somehow that combination creates this perfect storm of mundane absurdity. It's like the universe decided to play a practical joke on travelers and geography at the same time. The airport itself actually serves both Normal and nearby Bloomington, hence the BMI designation for Bloomington Normal. But most people don't realize that connection immediately. They just see BMI and think about their last doctor's visit. The airport has handled this with typical Midwestern grace, which is to say, they've largely ignored the potential for humor and focused on providing reliable regional service. But for those of us who appreciate wordplay and coincidence, BMI Normal will forever be one of the most accidentally funny airport codes in existence. Speaking of medical terminology, let's visit St. Louis Lambert International Airport, which operates under the code STL. Now, STL itself isn't particularly funny, but when you realize that many travelers abbreviate it as STL and then discover that there's a medical condition called STL syndrome, things get interesting. Plus, the airport serves a city that's famous for its arch, and STL kind of looks like it could be describing the shape of an arch if you squint hard enough. It's not the most obvious comedy airport code, but it has enough weird coincidences to make our list. The real humor with STL comes from the fact that it's such a straightforward abbreviation that it almost seems too simple, like someone at the International Air Transport Association was having a really easy day and just decided to use the first 3 letters of the city name. No creativity, no hidden meaning, just pure geographic laziness. In a world of bizarre airport codes, sometimes the normal ones stand out as being weirdly normal. Our next destination takes us to Intercourse, Pennsylvania, which doesn't have its own airport, but is served by Lancaster Airport with the code LNS. The town name alone is enough to make middle schoolers giggle, but the combination of flying into Lancaster to visit Intercourse creates endless opportunities for double entendres and awkward conversations. The town was named in the 1700s when intercourse simply meant commerce or social interaction. But modern travelers don't need a history lesson to appreciate the comedy potential. What makes this even better is that Intercourse is located in the heart of Pennsylvania Dutch country, surrounded by Amish communities and traditional crafts. So you have this incredibly conservative, traditional area with a town name that sounds like it belongs in a risque comedy movie. The contrast is absolutely perfect, and visitors often collect souvenirs just to have something that says Intercourse, Pennsylvania on it. It's innocent enough to be family-friendly while still being giggle-worthy for adults. Let's head over to Boring, Oregon, which is served by Portland International Airport with the code PDX. Now, Boring isn't particularly exciting as a name, but what makes it hilarious is that it's officially sister cities with Dull, Scotland, and Bland, Australia. Can you imagine the tourism board meetings for these places? Welcome to the most unexciting partnership in municipal history. The fact that you have to fly into PDX out to get to Boring just adds another layer of irony to the whole situation. The town of Boring was actually named after William H. Boring, an early resident and Union soldier. But that historical context doesn't make the name any less amusing to modern travelers. The residents have embraced their nominative destiny, hosting events like the Boring and Dull Day celebration, and creating merchandise that celebrates their commitment to being unremarkable. It's this kind of self-deprecating humor that makes small-town America so endearing. Moving along to our 8th bizarre code, we have Worms, Germany, which doesn't have its own commercial airport but is served by nearby Frankfurt Airport with the code FRA. While FRA itself isn't funny, the idea of flying into Frankfurt to visit Worms creates some interesting mental imagery. The city is actually pronounced more like Worms in German, and it's a historic city with a beautiful cathedral and significant cultural heritage. But English speakers can't help but think about slimy garden creatures when they hear the name. What makes this particularly amusing is that Worms is actually a very dignified, ancient city with over 1,000 years of history. It was one of the most important cities in medieval Germany, the site of numerous imperial diets, and home to significant Jewish communities for centuries. But to English-speaking travelers, it's just the Worms city. And that disconnect between historical significance and modern perception creates a perfect comedy situation. Our 9th stop takes us to Hell, Norway, which is served by Trondheim Airport with the code TRD. Hell, Norway is a small village that becomes absolutely packed with tourists during the winter months, not because of its amenities, but because people want to say they've been to hell when it's frozen over. The local train station has become one of the most photographed transportation hubs in Norway, with visitors posing next to the Hell Station sign while bundled up in winter gear. The village name comes from the Old Norse word heller, meaning flat rock, but modern visitors don't need etymology lessons to appreciate the humor. The combination of flying into TRD to visit Hell, Norway, creates endless opportunities for wordplay and social media posts. Local businesses have capitalized on this, selling everything from Hell, Norway t-shirts to postcards that say greetings from hell. It's become such a tourist attraction that the village has had to install additional signage and facilities to handle the influx of visitors who just want to say they've been to hell. Let's talk about French Lick Municipal Airport again, but this time focusing on a different aspect. The airport code, FRH, might seem straightforward, but when you consider that it serves a town called French Lick, in a state known for its conservative values, the combination creates this wonderful cognitive dissonance. Indiana isn't exactly known for its French culture or licking activities, so the name stands out like a sore thumb in the American Midwest. The airport itself is tiny, primarily serving private aircraft and flight training operations, but it has achieved a level of notoriety that far exceeds its operational significance. Pilots often request photos with the airport sign, and aviation enthusiasts make pilgrimages to FRH just to add it to their logbooks. It's become something of a cult destination in the flying community, purely because of its wonderfully inappropriate-sounding name. Our final destination brings us to Climax, Michigan, which is served by Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport with the code AZO. While AZO itself isn't particularly funny, the journey to Climax creates endless opportunities for double entendres and awkward conversations. The town was named after its location on a high elevation, but modern travelers don't need geographic explanations to appreciate the humor potential. What makes this even more entertaining is that Climax is a tiny, unincorporated community with virtually no commercial development, so visitors are often disappointed to discover that there's really nothing there. The anticlimax of visiting Climax creates its own meta-humor, where the journey becomes more interesting than the destination. It's like a geographic dad joke that takes several hours of travel time to deliver. Throughout this journey of ridiculous airport codes and amusing town names, we've discovered that sometimes the best comedy comes from the most unexpected places. These codes weren't designed to be funny. They were created by bureaucrats and aviation officials who were simply trying to create a systematic way to identify airports and locations. But in their serious official capacity, they've inadvertently created some of the most entertaining coincidences in modern travel. What makes these codes even more amusing is how seriously they're treated in official aviation contexts. Air traffic controllers have to say these codes with straight faces. Pilots have to file flight plans using them, and passengers have to print them on their boarding passes. The contrast between the official seriousness of aviation and the unintentional humor of these codes creates a perfect comedy situation. The beauty of these bizarre airport codes is that they remind us that humor can be found in the most mundane aspects of modern life. Air travel is often stressful, expensive, and frustrating, but these little moments of levity can make the experience more bearable. Whether you're flying into SUX, driving through French Lick, or planning a trip to hell, these codes add a touch of absurdity to what could otherwise be a purely functional system. As we conclude our tour of the most hilariously bizarre airport codes, remember that these aren't just random combinations of letters. They're reminders that behind every systematic attempt to organize the world, there's still room for accident, coincidence, and pure comedy gold. The next time you're booking a flight or checking your boarding pass, take a moment to appreciate the three-letter code that's guiding your journey. You might just discover that your destination is funnier than you ever imagined. So the next time someone asks you about your travel plans, you can confidently say that you're flying into SUX, visiting French Lick, or taking a trip to hell, and you'll know that you're part of a grand tradition of travelers who've found humor in the most unexpected places. After all, life's too short not to laugh at the absurdity of flying into an airport that sounds like it was named by a committee of comedians with access to a geography textbook and a healthy sense of irony.